The biblical account of conception, the prenatal existence, and birth and early years of Esau and Jacob presents some lasting lessons that can help us better understand how to live together. It offers timeless truths about the challenges we face in living together. And this ancient story about the early life of Abraham's grandsons, remember this, Abraham's grandsons, contains deep lessons for us about ambition and justice. Isaac, Abraham's second son, keep that in mind, Isaac married Rebekah when he was 40 years old. They weren't able to have children for a while, 20 years. He was 60 when Esau and Jacob were born. The Genesis account reports that Isaac prayed for Rebekah to conceive and that Rebekah had a difficult pregnancy. And therefore she prayed during her pregnancy for inspiration. Isaac's prayers were granted and she conceived. Rebekah was able to bring her pregnancy to term, eventually giving birth to twin sons, Esau the elder and Jacob the second one. The sons grew into manhood with distinctly different interests. We might think of Jacob as a homebody, while we might think of Esau as something of an outdoorsman. In doing so, we should not esteem one interest over the other because, as that great philosopher Sylvester Stewart, also known as Sly Stone, said in the song, different strokes for different folks. Okay? Oh, yeah, I see you shaking your head. You didn't know that Sylvester Stewart, Sly Stone was making philosophy. You need to read the lyrics instead of dealing with the beat. Read the lyrics. There's a message in the music. Sly said that too. Sly said it too. There's a message in the music. Every gathering of people consists of people with different interests, different perspectives, different aspirations. That's true within families. That's true within work groups. That's true in classrooms. It's true in neighborhoods. It's true in societies. It's true in the whole world. We are not all alike. We are wonderfully different. We are wonderfully different. We should also not ignore or overlook a more basic truth. Living in community involves learning how to live together with our differences. It involves learning how to live together with our differences, and that involves something we have not learned how to do very well: sharing. Sharing. Remember, it was one of the first lessons we had to learn in school. One of the first lessons we had to learn in school was how to share. Because we all came from our very special homes, and we came with a notion of mine, mine, mine. And we had to learn how to share. The struggle that Esau and Jacob carried on within Rebekah's womb teaches us something that I hadn't thought about, and I suppose the mental health professionals within our congregation and elsewhere may want to have shed some light on this. Do humans struggle with the notion of sharing before we're born? Is our capacity, is our reluctance to share part of our prenatal development? I don't know. I don't know. The account we have in Genesis about the prenatal existence of Esau and Jacob is that they struggled even in utero, even in the womb. They coexisted, but they didn't have community. They coexisted, but they struggled. The embryos who later became Esau and Jacob struggled before they were born. They struggled before they were named. They struggled before they became people of different interests. They struggled before birth, long before they would learn anything about something called a birthright. Do not think that the birthright was the beginning of their struggle. Our account says that Esau and Jacob's struggle began long before there was a conversation about lentil stew. Here's the first takeaway from the passage today. Coexistence is not the same thing as community. Coexistence is not the same thing as community. Esau and Jacob coexisted inside their mother's womb, but they appeared to be competitors there. There was strife between them even before they were born. The Genesis account we have provides no hint that they developed a bond after birth, during childhood, or as they entered adulthood that overcame the struggle they had as embryos. These were men who, as babies, grew up in the same house. They were part of the same family network. We can presume they heard the same bedtime stories and ate the same meals. Let's presume that they played on the same ground. But none of that seems to influence Jacob so much to treat Esau as a sibling rather than a rival. Because it seemed that Jacob never learned to share with his brother. Otherwise, why would Jacob at manhood refuse to give his hungry twin brother a serving of stew? Why would he use his brother's hunger as an opportunity to purchase an inheritance that he did not deserve based on their birth order? This is the most expensive meal in the history of humanity. Esau and Jacob show that people can coexist in a place without ever becoming a community. They can live in the same space. They can breathe the same air. They can drink the same water. They can eat the same food. They can have other things in common, yet find themselves unable, or, catch this, unwilling to cooperate and share. Esau and Jacob are not merely two names from ancient Hebrew history. They are examples about a moral and an ethical issue common to people everywhere. Do not just limit this to Esau and Jacob. Do not just limit this to two ancients of the Hebrew tradition. This is a story. This is a lesson about humanity in general. Esau and Jacob are examples of the age-old struggle between men and women to live together as equals rather than rivals. Hello. Esau and Jacob are examples of the struggle between people from different religions, different ethnic backgrounds, different incomes to live together in community rather than as rival factions. Esau and Jacob are examples of the struggle for supremacy that humans have carried on in every place and in all times as long as we can imagine. Esau and Jacob are us. Esau and Jacob are us. Esau and Jacob show that coexistence does not automatically make people willing to share resources. Coexistence does not automatically make people compassionate. Coexistence does not automatically make people willing to put self-interest aside in favor of helping others do well. It is not enough to say if we just put people together, they will learn to get along. No, 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 no. Esau and Jacob show that is not so. That leads to the second takeaway. Becoming a community requires that we confront the realities of difference. Becoming community requires that we confront, not avoid, not pretend that there are no realities of difference, not pretend that there are no issues, not pretend that, oh, we're just going to all get along. No, 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 no. Becoming community requires that we look the realities of difference in the face. People are different, Esau and Jacob teach us. And becoming community doesn't mean erasing what makes each person different. After all, our differences are what makes us unique. The reason I am not Joyce is because Joyce is Joyce and I am Wendell. And there are special attributes about being Joyce that Wendell can never have, and the special attributes that Wendell Joyce can never have. But the challenge of being a community is learning how Joyce and Wendell can learn how to not just coexist, but cooperate, collaborate, act in concert, even when we differ, even in our differences. Community is not created by erasing our differences, but by our willingness to move from coexistence to shared and equal fellowship while affirming that the differences that define our personhood often cannot be changed. Hello? Because, see, sometimes we want people to change as a precondition to becoming community. We would be able to get along if they would just be different. Have you heard that? If Jacob was just like Esau, no. If Esau just like Jacob, no. The challenge is learning to admit that the differences are challenges for us to overcome and confront, but not reasons for us to bring out an eraser. The moral and ethical challenge presented by our differences stems from the temptation that we have to treat those who are different as rivals to us, if not threats to us. That's the challenge. We are tempted to treat people who are different as our rivals, if not our threats. Now, differences do not require that we view others as rivals, and differences do not make us rivals. We choose to make our differences a reason for rivalry, based on our ambitions, based on our desires, based on our objectives. Make it plain, preacher. Jacob chose to view Esau as a rival for their father's attention and affection. By the time they reached adulthood, Jacob didn't just want attention and affection. Jacob wanted the inheritance that Esau had a right to have. Let me give you a legal word. You don't have to go to law school to learn this word. It's not just in law, but it's a word that comes from ancient tradition of law. The word is primogeniture. Say it. Primogeniture. Now say it again. Primogeniture. That's just a long word for saying the right of the firstborn. Okay? From ancient culture, the firstborn son was entitled to certain special rights. One of those special rights was, upon the death of the patriarch, of the father, the firstborn son became the head of the family. The right of leadership passed from the father to the firstborn son. Now, I understand we're talking about something that's male-oriented. This is cultural. This is patriarchal culture, okay? And so that's hard for us to get our heads around in an egalitarian society, but the reality is the culture of ancient civilizations followed this tradition. And it's important for us to understand this in order for us to understand the story of Jacob and Esau. So the first part of the birthright was the right of leadership. Becoming head of the family is a big deal because families are known by the head's name. Remember, Abraham, Isaac, and not Esau. Not Esau. Abraham, Isaac, and why Jacob? Because Jacob had the birthright. He assumed the head of the family after Isaac by virtue of having attained the birthright from Esau. Had that not happened, then it would be Abraham, Isaac, and there you go. Okay, first thing is head of family. With head of family came something else. an extra share of the inheritance. Title and stuff. Hello? Now that's the Griffin paraphrase, okay? Title and stuff. Esau would be entitled by virtue of being the firstborn son to, upon the death of Isaac, be named head of the family, but also would have a double portion of the inheritance. Therefore, Esau would not get half, but he would get 2/3. Jacob would inherit 1/3. Which leads us to the third takeaway of this sermon. Ambition is a driving force that, if we do not control, can become a demon. It can become a demonic force. Ambition is simply a strong desire to do or to achieve something. Another word for ambition is aspiration. It would be a mistake to think unfavorably of Jacob or anyone else for being ambitious. After all, ambition is a driving force to varying degrees for everyone. Show me a person without ambition, and I'll show you a person who doesn't want anything anytime. Hello? All of us have ambition about something. If it's only the ambition to be left alone. All of us have ambition for something. There's nothing immoral or unethical about having goals or objectives and being determined to do one's best to attain those goals and objectives. Wanting to improve one's lot in life is not wrong. It's not right. It's simply common for all humans. Every human wants to do better. Everybody wanted, when they learned to crawl, to learn how to walk. Hello? Those of us who learn how to walk want to learn how to walk fast. After we learn how to walk fast, we want to learn how to run. We learn how to run, we want to learn how to ride a bicycle if we could. Hello? After we learn how to ride a bicycle, we want to learn how to drive a car. After we learn how to drive a car, we want to learn how to drive a car with stick shift. Hello? Boom, boom, boom. We all want to do better. That's a common drive. The moral and the ethical problem arises when the drive of ambition takes on God-like importance to us. When ambition becomes so important that we define living and relationships and even our own worth by it, ambition then is more than a drive. At that point, ambition becomes oppressive to us and oppressive for others. At that point, ambition becomes demonic. And Jacob's ambition appears to have reached that oppressive point. He desired not simply to be his best self. He desired to overwhelm and to overrule his older brother at any cost. The demonic nature of his ambition is presented vividly in our text by Jacob's unwillingness to share food with Esau out of a sense of human, not just sibling, but human compassion. After all, if a human sees another human who is hungry and the human has food, it is simply humane to offer. You don't have to be kin to me. One of the lessons of hospitality in every culture is to offer to share a meal. And that was the lesson that Jacob grew up with in his culture. There was nothing in Jacob's upbringing that told him that he needed to sell his brother a meal if he was hungry. No, that was counterculture. It was demonic. Instead, Jacob's ambition led him to view his brother's hunger as a vulnerability to be exploited, and then to sell food, sell lentil stew to Esau in order to get the 2/3 portion of the family inheritance and the right to be named head of the family that Jacob did not deserve. Esau and Jacob knew that the law of their culture decreed that the eldest son was entitled to be called the head of the family and entitled to a double share of the inheritance upon the death of their father. If you want to check that out, look at Deuteronomy, the 21st chapter, verses 15 to 17. Jacob knew that Esau was not only his father's favorite. That didn't give Esau anything. Jacob knew that Esau was the firstborn. Esau's birthright was not something to be bought and sold. It was his by right. It arose from his birth order. But Jacob wanted to be head of the family when Isaac died. Jacob wanted to have more property and more prestige. He didn't want to be just who he was, the second son. He wanted to be the ruling son. And when ambition becomes demonic, things that should be used to bless others will be misused to entrap them. When ambition becomes demonic, opportunities for compassion and mercy are employed as ways to exploit suffering and vulnerability and weakness, to figure out how I can make a profit off of the suffering of others, how I can gain advantage over the suffering, over the disabilities of others. When ambition becomes demonic, the rightful claims and needs and cares of others are not respected. Demonic ambition explains how Jacob turned a bowl of lentil soup for a hungry man into the beginning of a personal dynasty. This was not a case of a man taking advantage of an honorable opportunity. This was a case of a man using his advantage of food to obtain an unjust benefit from his tired and hungry brother. At that point, Jacob's ambition was more than a drive. It was the demon he served. It was his God. In service to that demon, Jacob sacrificed his compassion, he sacrificed mercy, he sacrificed justice. In service to that demon, Jacob turned food into a weapon he used against his own brother. The demonic character of Jacob's ambition allowed him to use Esau's hunger and fatigue as an advantage, as an opportunity to obtain an unfair advantage. Don't think that's limited to Jacob. As a matter of fact, one of the great ironies of biblical history that we often do not notice, you may not have thought about it until today, but here it goes. Jacob's conduct actually was following a pattern set by his grandfather. I told you, Isaac was Abraham's second son. Isaac was not Abraham's firstborn son. Abraham expelled Ishmael, the son born to Hagar, who Abraham took as his wife at his wife's behest, after Sarah was unable to conceive. After Isaac was born, Isaac, the second son, was born, and Sarah became jealous. Check the record. Sarah said, I don't want this boy inheriting anything. So put him out. What an irony, then, that Isaac would have his own firstborn displaced as he had displaced his own older brother. The irony doesn't stop there. Recall that the displacement controversy continued for Jacob. Joseph was not Jacob's firstborn. Joseph was the firstborn of Jacob's second wife. Joseph was the one that became head of the family in Egypt after the family moved to Egypt in the famine. But Israel, he was Israel by that name, no longer Jacob. Israel still had older sons living. Can I give you one more bit of irony? Just so you think, just so you realize, this thing goes deep. Fast forward to Egypt. Fast forward to the first time that Israel meets Joseph's sons. Two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. You know what? I just now named them in reverse order. Manasseh was born first. Ephraim was born second. When they were born, Israel said, bring them to me so I can bless them. Joseph brings the boys up, positioning Manasseh, the oldest one, so he will be on the right-hand side of his father to get the right-hand blessing, and Ephraim, the younger one, on the left hand to get the left-hand blessing. And what does Israel do? He switches hands. He switches hands. He switches hands. And when you read the text, you'll find that Joseph was disturbed because he intended that the Manasseh would get the blessing from his father. But Israel said, I knew what I was doing. Isn't it amazing how stuff keeps on going? Well, the bad news is that demonic ambition produces oppressive and unjust relationships that frustrate efforts to create community. Jacob's ambition became the defining mark of his relationship with Esau for the rest of their father's lifetime. They could not have justice. They could not have community for the rest of their father's life because their relationship was defined by the demonic ambition that drove Jacob. Point being that justice and community are not created by ambition. They're not created by oppressive slavery to ambition. They're not created by domination based on ambition. Justice and community are created by cooperation. Justice and community are not created by exploiting others who are needy and vulnerable and weak, but by sharing with them. And that is something that Jacob did not learn. Justice and community are not created by self-serving gain, whether one calls it being enterprising or entrepreneurial or ambitious or focused or just gung-ho or some other term. Justice and community result from caring for others and respecting others and affirming their worth in our own lives. And the good news for us, in case you wonder what the good news is that Jacob is not our role model. Now, Jacob is the role model of Wall Street. Jacob is the role model of Bernie Madoff. Jacob is the role model of Donald Trump. How you get over best is exploiting the weaknesses. But Jacob is not our role model. Jesus is. Unlike Jacob, Jesus did not use the powers that he exercised as a way of taking advantage of needy and suffering and vulnerable and weak people. Unlike Jacob, Jesus did not try to gain an advantage based upon what he had. Unlike Jacob, Jesus shows we don't need to use our privilege as a weapon. Jesus, not Jacob, is God's best lesson to us on how to live together. And because we follow Jesus and not Jacob, we shouldn't use health care as a weapon. I know you're wondering when I was going to get to something. We shouldn't use health care as a weapon. We should not be trying, those of us who have the blessing of health care, we should not be trying to use health care as a way to keep certain people down, to keep immigrants out, to keep poor people from getting it. We who have the blessing of health care should act so it's available and affordable for everyone, because our role model is Jesus and not Jacob. Because we follow Jesus, we shouldn't turn our backs on immigrants and refugees. We should be leaders and activists who welcome them and protect them and defend them and advocate for them and with them. We who call this place home should act so others can find it home here and be safe here as they flee war and famine and suffering and cruelty and other oppression. Because we follow Jesus and not Jacob, we should challenge our society and our world to share what we have with others in need. We throw away food. And in Little Rock, we're having a debate on whether and where we can feed homeless people. Hello. Hello. Now, we can bring any convention in here we want to and throw away food after they come, but we want to not allow people to feed homeless and hungry people publicly. But we want to make the homeless and hungry people have to go out of their way to find food. That's not the ethics of Jesus. That's the ethics of the ambitious Jacob. You'd think that we would be more Jesus-like, but the truth of the matter is we're more like Jacob, aren't we? Because we follow Jesus, then we can do some challenging. We can do some correcting. Because we follow Jesus, we can say, there's nothing wrong with ambition, but there's something very wrong when your ambition becomes the driving force for how you treat people. The way of Jesus, not the way of Jacob, is the way we have to choose on how to love each other, how to share with each other, how to care for one another, and how to live together in God's love. This is the way to community. This is the way to peace. This is the way to justice. Amen.